Look at this image. A massive steel cargo ship, stacked high with containers, represents the sheer mechanized scale of modern global trade. But a machine like this depends on a very specific environment. It needs deep water ports, heavy cranes, and tightly managed schedules to remain efficient and profitable. Now look at the Indonesian archipelago. This is a geography that interrupts the expansion of that system. Indonesia is spread across more than 17,000 islands, many of them remote, shallow, and heavily fragmented by narrow coastal passages. For many of these places, giant steel freighters simply cannot operate. They draw too much water to enter shallow channels, and the local settlements lack the infrastructure needed to receive them. The result is a logistical gap. Major shipping routes terminate at a handful of larger hubs, leaving millions of people on outer islands dependent on a different and far less visible supply chain. Filling that gap is a fleet that looks as if it belongs to another century. Through the morning mist, you can still find large wooden cargo vessels, their decks piled high with timber, rice, produce, and general supplies. This is Pelayaran Rakyat, or Pelra. The term means the people's shipping network. Despite their traditional appearance, these are not museum ships. They are working, engine-powered cargo vessels moving goods between islands and sustaining local economies in places modern logistics still cannot fully reach. They serve as the final link in the supply chain, completing the last and most difficult leg of a journey that the steel giants cannot finish. Because these wooden ships draw far less water, they can approach shallow coasts, muddy river mouths, and small settlements with little or no formal port infrastructure. When they arrive, the unloading is almost entirely manual. Cargo is lifted, carried, and shifted by hand. There are no automated cranes here, no digital terminal systems, just labor, balance, timing, and experience. Reaching these places also requires a very different kind of seamanship. Crews rely heavily on generational knowledge, reading watercolor, tidal movement, currents, and wind direction, rather than depending entirely on sophisticated onboard systems. And that creates its own danger. Without modern radar or advanced navigation tools, these vessels remain highly exposed to sudden weather changes. A routine crossing can become hazardous very quickly. In the absence of centralized digital dispatch, the network survives through kinship, trust, and informal communication built over decades of shared work at sea. Where rigid automated systems fail, human endurance and adaptability carry the route forward. But that comes at a cost. Look closely at the hull. The wood is cracked, weathered, and continuously stressed by salt, heat, and movement. These ships require constant maintenance just to remain operational, and the timber needed to repair them is becoming harder to find and more expensive to buy. That scarcity puts enormous pressure on the captains, owners, and families trying to keep these vessels alive. At the same time, governments are tightening maritime safety regulations. Inspectors, trained around the standards of modern steel shipping, are increasingly applying those same expectations to traditional wooden fleets. The intent is clear: improve safety, reduce risk, and formalize compliance. But in practice, the gap is immense. Applying rigid modern standards to hand-built, family-run wooden cargo operations creates a compliance burden many of these ships simply cannot absorb. And that means the Pelra network risks being pushed out of existence not only by markets, but by regulation. Economic pressure is completing the squeeze. Faster, larger, and more predictable logistics systems continue expanding through larger ports and modern routes. Harbours that were once crowded with wooden cargo vessels now sit noticeably quieter. What we are witnessing is not a dramatic collapse, but a steady erosion. A weather-dependent, labor-intensive system is struggling to survive inside an economy that increasingly demands digital precision and strict schedules. If the Pelra fleet disappears, isolated coastal communities lose more than a transport option. They lose a lifeline. And Indonesia loses more than ships. It loses a living maritime culture, along with the accumulated knowledge of how to build, navigate, repair, and operate these vessels across generations. The future of Pelra now depends on a delicate balance. Modern safety standards are necessary, but if modernization arrives without adaptation, it may destroy the very system it is trying to improve. Whether regulators, communities, and operators can find that balance will determine whether these ships continue sailing for another generation.